Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Jaya Mr. Pad Paramahamsa Padavajakacarya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Padavajakacarya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavina ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, on this 11th day of May 2026 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 2 entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized, text 59 on page 125. Vishaya Vanivartante Niraharasya Dehinaha Rasavarjam Rasopyasya Param drishtva nivartate vishayava nivartante niraharasya dehinaha vasavarjam masopyasya padam drishtva nivartate vishayava nivartante niraharasya dehinaha vasavarjam masopyasya padam drishtva nivartate vishayava nivartante niraharasya dehinaha vasavarjam masopyasya padam drishtva nivartate. Tapas. Vishayava nivartante niraharasya dehinaha vasavarjam masopyasya padam drishtva nivartate. Jeff. No, Vishaya. Vishayava nivartante niraharasya dehinaha vasavarjam masopasya padam drishtva nivartate. Luis. Vishayava nivartante niraharasya dehinaha vasavarjam masopyasya padam drishtva nivartate. Vishayava nivartante niraharasya dehinaha vasavarjam masopyasya padam drishtva nivartate. Bhakti Chad.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, who else is?
Prem Gopal.
Okay, Prem Gopal, go ahead.
Vishayava nivartante niraharasya
dehinaha
rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva
nivartate. Vishayava nivartante niraharasya dehinaha vasavarjam masopyasya padam drishtva nivartate. Vishaya, objects for sense enjoyment, vinivartante, are practiced to be refrained from. Niraharasya, by negative restrictions. Dehinaha, for the embodied soul. Rasavarjam, giving up the taste. Rasaha, sense of enjoyment. Api, although there is. Asya, his. Padam, far superior things. Drishtva, by experiencing. Nivartate, he ceases from. Translation. Though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. Purport. Unless one is transcendentally situated, it is not possible to cease from sense enjoyment. The process of restriction from sense enjoyment by rules and regulations is something like restricting a diseased person from certain types of eatables. The patient, however, neither likes such restrictions nor loses his taste for the eatables. Similarly, sense restriction by some spiritual process like Ashtanga Yoga in the matter of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, etc., is recommended for less intelligent persons who have no better knowledge. But once But one who has tasted the beauty of the Supreme Lord Krishna in the course of his advancement in Krishna consciousness no longer has a taste for dead material things. Therefore, restrictions are there for the less intelligent neophytes in the spiritual advancement of life. But such restrictions are only good until one actually has a taste for Krishna consciousness. When one is actually Krishna conscious, he automatically loses his taste for pale things. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshu unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So I remember when I first read this verse, and I could really relate to it because I was experiencing that as I adjusted to my first days, weeks, and months in the Brooklyn Temple, which is full of lots of hearing and chanting and Harinam and all kinds of things, which completely obliterated my taste for material things. At least, I still wasn't a complete pure devotee, but I felt the very strong influence of Krishna attracting me away from these material things. So this is a very important verse that we can relate to. The previous verse talked about the ideal of a devotee who is one who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects as a tortoise draws its limbs within its shell, is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness. And in many ways, that's kind of an indication. I'm thinking of the first verse of the Nectar of Instruction, the Upadeshamrita, 11 verses of essential instruction written by Rupa Goswami. And the very first verse deals with this. And in the context of who one should accept as one's teacher, as a guide, as a guru. This is really what the first verse. And he goes like, Vacho Vegam, Manasak Krodha Vegam, Jivva Vegam, Uraro Pasta Vegam, Etan Vegan Yovishaheta Dira, Samamapima Pradivingsta Shishyat. Very interesting. So this word Vega means the pushing, the urges. Just like our senses, if you're really hungry, the stomach is giving you a strong indication, then you really want to find some food that you can eat, right? And there are beautiful things we like to see and hear and taste and touch and all the senses are like that. So, and also the mind. He says, Vacho Vegam. So here's the urge to speak. That's a kind of a sense gratification. To always be going off on something, and it can be a big field of sense gratification, talking pajalpa and nonsense, or hearing such. It used to be the radio. Is there still such a thing as radio? Is such a thing as radio still? It's definitely not as popular as it used to be. Everyone out there, they got the earphones on, but they're also looking to the phones. They got a whole program with walking. And then walking the dog, looking at the phone, hearing the whole, all the senses are involved. So, but Vacho Begam, the urge to speak, that's certainly there. You want to jabber about something. Manasat, mind, is giving you so many impetuses. You remember this, and I've often described that advertising is the art of planting a desire seed in your mind that will come out later when, the proper time. Krodavegam, the pushings of anger, they can be very uncontrollable sometimes. If someone has gotten you, you'll do something that you regret the rest of your life or something like that. Vachavegam manasakha jivvavegam, the urge of the tongue to eat palatable dishes, overeat. The tongue is telling you, eat, and someone says, no more, no more. If you don't listen to the stomach, you listen to the tongue only, then you get too much. And then ururapastavegam, the urging of the belly and also the genitals. So these are 6 pushing agents that the realized soul has learned how to control. In other words, you can, and what's interesting is you can see someone if you spend some time with a guru or a leader, a spiritual leader, and you can see. It's an interesting little vignette. Giriraj Swami has written a book that will be out soon. Called Finding My Spiritual Master. he talks about this, I think, in another book that he wrote, but this he really gets into it, and how he was searching for a guru. He was in college, I think first year or something, but he really wanted to find a spiritual teacher, and he had a car, and he would like sometimes, despite the class schedule, he would drive off 500 miles, to go to this university or something. So he describes seeing one, Hare Krishna. We have our Bhagavad Gita class, which you're welcome to attend, and then the darshan is at 8:15. Okay, but okay, if you'd like to attend, this is the men's side over here. Yeah, we have a book for you, seat, everything. If you want, you can sit on the cushion, or you can sit on the bench or the chair, whatever. Yeah, you're all ready. All right, so he describes, he would drive, and so he saw once, I can't say he was my guru, but he was one of my first yoga teachers, Satchidananda. And he had something called integral yoga, where it wasn't just asanas, but we also did pranayama, and also chanting, singing. We had a little kirtan. Om Namo Shivaya, Om Namo Shivaya, we sing like that a little bit. And then we meditate, So he'd heard that he was speaking. This was the late 60s, early 70s, when I was also looking, but I came later than Giriraj Swami. And he went up, he drove, and he was impressed, with the talk and everything. But then he saw it, he had these, a lot of disciples, and some of them were young women and everything. So he got up and he would give some of the young women a very big hug, a tight hug, And so Giriraj said, no, he's not my guru. He said, this is not good. So eventually, he joined in Boston, and when Prabhupada came there, he saw first a lecture in one other university, then he was standing, and he was very impressed. And there was a lot of kirtan and a prasadam and everything, and so he was attracted. It's a wonderful story, actually. But so this is because the first stage, is really coming in touch with a guru who you can have some faith in. Now, in Prabhupada's case, the 99.99% of that touch comes today through his books. Through these books, the teaching here. And also we have, wonderful biographies of Srila Prabhupada, and there are several movies you can see on YouTube. There's one, the last one that Yaruba and Shaka produced, Hare Krishna, the mantra, the movement, and the Swami who started it all, or the Guru who started it all. Again, it's very nice. And so you can also get, you can get some understanding of Prabhupada's character from that. And of course the biography, wonderful biographies of Prabhupada. So back to the verse here. So this is he's describing a process here. Vishaya. Vishaya means objects of senses, the object of the senses, which is the object of sense enjoyment. Vinivartante should be practiced to refrain from. So what it means is the turning away from. So people do that all the time. Oh, I got to lose weight, I can't keep eating, it's filling food. So they make a strong vow, or determine I won't, eat, chocolate sundaes every night, whatever they do, And sometimes for that, to encourage them, there are places you can go to, right, where everyone is doing it. I don't know what they call them. They used to call them fat farms, but I don't think they do it anyway. But it's like it's like an ashram with other people. You get strength from association like that. But the problem is the nirahara, so literally means not eating. Ahara means to eat, but all of your senses consume their objects, You're consuming the sounds, you're consuming the so that nirahasya dehina. Dehina means an embodied soul. So the embodied soul may stop eating or consuming or turn away from the objects of the senses. But rasabarjam, but the taste remains, because he hasn't given up the taste yet, or the attraction for such sense enjoyment. But so that's the problem, because if the taste remains, eventually, you'll indulge again. That's the thing. The taste has to be given up. This is real. This is where the principle of vairagya comes in. Vairagya is a very, very important principle. Raga is a word for the attachment. You know, the taste that you build up. You like to eat certain kind of foods and see movies and this and that. You have this whole set of things that are there. And when you're with your friends and you go and enjoy, then you enjoy a certain set of them. And that just puts you deeper and deeper into that attachment. So that's the situation of the embodied soul, the conditioned soul. That's the conditioning. But param drishva nivartate. So here it says you may give it up, stop consuming it, but the taste remains, and it's always ready to pounce on you if you're not careful. But here it says, and here's the key phrase: param drishva nivartate. Param here means the Lord. What is it? Far superior things. In other words, Krishna and the holy name and everything to do with Krishna consciousness, transcendental objects. I'm not going to say of sense pleasure, but spiritual pleasure. You can find spiritual pleasure in chanting the holy name, associating with devotees, and of course, prasadam. You're eating, you know, it's delicious, but at the same time, it's spiritual if you do it with consciousness, you know. So then the key for param drishva nivartate. So seeing the Supreme, experiencing the far superior things, which is the transcendental reality of Krishna's holy name, etc. And drishva, that means to see or directly experience. Nivartate, ceases from. Then your renunciation is firm. You know, I can give my own little example. Forgive me, you've heard it before. But I remember when I was very attached to McDonald's. I told you I was there when it first opened up, 1962. That's how old I am. And we would go on bowling every Saturday, me and my friends. And all of a sudden we saw there was some construction going on. Before long there was a McDonald's facility, you know, just like a block from the bowling alley. Oh, this is great, you know, we'll have our, you know, the fries and the cheeseburgers and whatever. Before or after, I forget if we used to have it. So that was a part of our Saturday night. So, you know, when you join Krishna consciousness, prasadam is a very important part of it, and you realize there's no, you know, no meat, fish, or eggs. You know, this is one of the 4 regular principles. Very important, because if you're eating meat, it's very difficult to become Krishna conscious, because you know, you understand, oh, I'm causing all this suffering for the poor animals and the poor, you know. Even as a young boy, I remember we used to have dinner together, believe it or not, you know, a family dinner. And I remember my father was about to cut it, and it was a chicken. We had a chicken, you know. But I could see the form of the chicken, the poor chicken, you know, and I can't eat that, you know. I just felt sorry for the chicken. But I grew out of that, and then before long I was cutting my own chicken, you know. Oh, God. So the point is that that vairagya is a very important aspect, and it's paired with jnana, with knowledge. Knowledge and jnanam and vairagya. There's this verse I often quote from the 2nd chapter, 1st canto, where Sutta Goswami is describing to the sages of Naimisharanya what real dharma is. What is that dharma by which the soul can experience true happiness? That was the question of the sages, you know. And so he starts speaking, and the first verse, the whole series is famous. We made a book out of it. Probably we'll give beautiful lectures on each one of these verses. And it's a whole lesson contained in itself. So I said, why don't we make another book out of it? Just like there was the teachings of Queen Kunti, the teachings of Lord Kapila-Dev, you know, and so there's now the Dharma, the way of transcendence. So Dharma was the key. What is that Dharma? What is that practice by which the soul can be fully satisfied? That was more or less the question of the sages. So he gives the answer, of course, related to bhakti. And he says, what is it? I can't stand it. I know this verse like anything. No one knows the verse. I can't believe it. Come on, Chad, give me a hint. Anyway, you can look it up. It's 126. 126. Yeah, not in the Gītā. It's in the Bhagavad Gita. 1st canto, 2nd chapter. You can call it. What is that? What's the first word? Savai Pungsang. Thank you. Savai Pungsang paro dharmo yato bhakti hokchaje. Ahoitukya patiya yayatma supersediti. So in this verse he said, what is that dharma? It's bhakti. It's pure devotional service. That's what the Bhagavatam is all about. Savai Pungsang paro dharmo, the supreme dharma. Because don't forget, the Bhagavatam, the second verse of the whole Bhagavatam, talks about in this book, which is the culmination of all the Vedic literatures. This is what we understand it to be. This Bhagavad Purana. It's actually a extensive commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta means the end of all knowledge, so that's it's conclusive. So Savai Pungsang Paro Dharmo. Now the second verse says, hey, there's all kinds of dharmas. Dharma projita kaita votra. Here, atta means here, which in this verse it appears 2 or 3 times. So here in this book, this literature, Vedic literature, Dharma projita kaitava, we kick out, we throw far away cheating religions, kaitava dharma. Because what is a cheating religion? A religion or a dharma that is materialistic motivated. Just like there's these 4 things: dharma, artha, kama, moksha. These are 4 Vedic goals. It ends with moksha, with mukti. But the first part is dharma means your role within varnashram. There's varnashram dharma. So the varnas are the social classes that you belong to. Are you an intellectual? Okay, you'll be a Brahmin. You're a warrior type, controller type, manager. You'll be a Kshatriya, Vaishya, farmer or banker, like that. And then the rest Shudras, manual laborer. They're all essential. All these elements. So it's a dharma, varna dharma, varna ashram. There's also ashram because the whole thing. Society is meant to give every member of society, human society, a path toward the ultimate goal of life. There is such a thing, and it's not just enjoying as much as you can and then dying. That's idiocy. It means it doesn't understand the first principle of real knowledge, which is that you're not the body. You're a spirit soul. You're eternal. Najayate, mriyate, vakadachanayam buddha. Ajo, Nitya, Shashvato, Purana. These are different qualities. You're unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. Those adjectives belong to Krishna also. He's also unborn and eternal. But we're part and parcel of Krishna. So we have his qualities in minute degree. But when we're acting according to the temporal pushes and pulls of our senses of this material body, then we're keeping ourselves bound to the cycle of birth and death called samsara. So mukti is a preliminary goal for the soul. But that means we have to follow a process by which we purify these material desires, which is the subject of the verse we're studying today. We're infected with birth after birth. Because don't forget that we have 2 bodies. We have the gross body, which is commonly called the body. But then we have the subtle body, the mind, the intelligence, and the ego. And it's that mind, intelligence, and ego that will carry us to our next gross body. That's the template. All our life, everything we do, every day, every moment, we're developing a consciousness. The mind is being filled with ideas, the intelligence has so many plans, and the ego, the sense of who we really are. All of that is the template for the next body. So Krishna consciousness, the process is consciously and intelligently following the higher guidance from the Shastra, from the Guru, from the Guru Shastra and the sadhus, different sadhus. So we can develop our consciousness, our mind, in such a way, and our intelligence, so that our next body will be purely spiritual. You see, we'll be home back to Godhead, or as is explained, we'll go to that planet in the material universe where Krishna is appearing. He has like a road show. He had his pastimes here 5,000 years ago, but when he left here, he's appearing in another material universe. And in fact, the pastimes are going on perpetually. Right now, today, is Janmashtami in some universe. I don't know if it's called Earth planet, but there's some planet where Krishna is appearing. And he's going to also engage in those pastimes, which are perfect duplicates of what's going on in the spiritual world. So Prabhupada said in several places and explained that if we're actually completed our course here in Krishna consciousness and we're ready to go back to Godhead, you don't go back to Godhead right away. You go to that planet where Krishna is appearing. So you're contemporary with him. And you get trained up in your individual service, whatever it may be. As a cowherd boy, as a parent, as a cowherd girl, as a cow, they're also fully conscious. They have a very wonderful place to play. So anyway, but you're on your way. And then the next birth, you're back to Godhead. Satchidananda, no more birth, in the material world. So this is an important concept here, because it's very down home, that we understand that this one of the Sanskrit language, Vishaya. What's the word for poison? You know that word in Hindi. Visha. Just think about that. Isn't that far out? Visha and Vishaya. Vishaya is the objects of the sense enjoyment. So it's kind of a poison for the soul. To enjoy gross sense gratification or subtle sense gratification, you're putting another nail in the coffin of staying in this material world. So those same things, the same senses which will keep us bound to this world when they're addicted to enjoying material sense gratification. When those same senses and sense objects are employed in the service of Krishna, they become means of transcendence, of breaking the bonds to this material world and eventually going back to Godhead. Just like all of this electronic equipment that Tapas is so nicely arranged, how we can have our Zoom calls and everything. Obviously, it can be used for material purposes also. And the vast majority of such machines are used for that in this material world. But this is the principle of yukta vairagya. The word vairagya is there again. A very nice verse in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. This one I can remember, thank God. Anasaktasya vishayan. Again, the word vishayan. Anasaktasya vishayan yataham abhuyunjata nirbandha krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchate. The definition of yukta vairagya, which means it means yogic detachment. Not giving up things. There's also just this tyaga, and there's vairagya. Okay, tyaga means literally to give up, just like alcohol. We don't try to engage that in Krishna service. It's just we don't drink it at all anymore, or any other kind of intoxication. And so some things have to simply be given up. But many things can be engaged in Krishna service. Just like all this cooking. I mean, there's demonic cooking meat and all this kind of stuff is going on. We go into, the supermarket. I like this, because I remember supermarkets from my childhood, but mine, that goes so different. There's this huge, long aisle in Vons, not in Vons, this is the other one, Ralph's. I don't think it's there, but it's not there. That's not there in Sprouts or Vons. But it's all different kinds of intoxicating beverages. And then not only that, but as soon as you walk in, they have the refrigerated ones for you also. You can buy. I've been going there a lot. This is in the last 6 months or so. They put that all in there. So the whole thing, practically. I mean, I used to go in there for one reason. I used to get fresh kale. And then I got some kale from you. Now I'm buying kale powder. I put it in the smoothie. It's a lot easier. Yeah, that was yeah. So kale is harmless. You can offer kale. So anyway, our whole materialistic society, people just take it for granted. That's what it's there for. I go to the supermarket. I can find all these things that I like. And people don't realize it. You're signing not a death warrant. You're going to die no matter what. But the point is suffering, so much suffering, because you're causing so much suffering. You go to the meat section. You don't even think twice. There's some nice ground meat. Oh, it's a good price. Yeah, maybe I'll get some. But what's behind that? That's some cow's muscle. It used to belong to a cow, and it went through tremendous suffering. And so that's where the devotee sees, and he sees reality there. So the taste is not there anymore, And in fact, you try your best to get everyone, not become a vegetarian, but become a devotee so that they'll start, give that up. So the key is one has to see the Supreme. So seeing the deity, hearing the holy name, practicing all of these things, you destroys the taste. Rasavajam yasabhyasa. The taste is also gone. And once that's gone, then you can be in the spirit of Yamunacharya, in the verse that's referred to twice in this Bhagavad Gita. Next verse, it's there. All right, we'll read the next verse in there. It's he is the epitome of this detachment.
Hare Krishna, Dravida Prabhu.
Okay, that means you have a question. Go ahead, Prem.
Humble obeisances to you, Prabhu. Yeah, I have a question about maybe what is the difference between aparigraha, which I understand to be non-attachment or detachment.
What is the word you used?
Aparigraha.
Parigrama.
Aparigraha.
Aparigram.
Aparigraha.
Oh, aparigraha. Aparigraha.
Yeah, it's one of the, oh my gosh, I think it's one of the yamas of the niyam, maybe the yamas, one of the yamas, the first limb of the 8 limbs of yoga, as detachment versus vairagra.
Well, they're pretty close. I mean, vairagya does mean detachment. Vairagya means freedom from raga. No raga. Raga means attachment. So vairagya means detachment. So that's a Sanskrit word that means for the word detachment. But we have to be careful because there's attachment and aversion. The opposite of attachment is not detachment. It's actually aversion. That's, you know, like you can understand easily that, and it says that a devotee is free from both attachment and aversion. You see, because you don't want to hate things. In other words, we may be averse to something, but well, how can I say? You know, I'm definitely averse to the cheeseburgers right now, and I'm also detached from them. Aversion is an active feeling of hatred towards something, and basically, you know, I don't hate hamburgers. You know, I'm just detached. I wouldn't eat one in a million years now. You know, there's no taste. It's gone. Although I had it one time. This is what the purification is about. When Lord Chaitanya, you know, the very first words of the Shikshatsaka talk about that. Cheto, Darpana, Marjanam, polishing the mirror of the mind. Of the heart. He uses the metaphor. But that's really what he's talking about. Purification of these contaminations of the consciousness, let's put it that way, which impel us to act in such a way that keeps us bound to the bodily concept of life and coming back again and again. And frankly, in this age, you'll be doing things that'll ensure your loss of the human form of life, which is a great tragedy. So really, those two words are equivalent: vairagya and aparigraha, was it, or something like that?
That's correct, Prabhu.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Maybe on a lower level, would it be correct to say that the opposite of love is not hate, but indifference? I heard that somewhere. Because if you hate something, you're still considering and you put in your energy still. But if you don't really, so I don't know, something. But I know it's not really the exact.
I don't know. I would say the opposite of love is hate, because it's, you know, in other words, if you love someone or love something, then you're always thinking, oh, how can I associate with that person or with that thing, you know? And hate is that, how can I avoid ever associating with that thing? You know, it is the opposite emotion. But the detachment is that is like, it's a more mature thing, because hating something can also be you're also thinking about it a lot, right? In other words, it's yeah. So really, we want to you know, move from that point of thinking about it a lot, where we don't think about it at all. So that's the more mature thing. So that's, you know, absence of attraction and aversion. You'll see those two they come up. Okay, so let's go on.
So did you have a bowling jacket when you went?
I don't think I ever did. Please don't remind me of those days, because I might. You'll see me coming in with a big bowling ball, you know. I was never very good at it, actually. All right, here we go. And here's that verse. Yamunacharya's verse is coming up in this next verse. It's very appropriate. Yatato yapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitaha indriyani pramatini hadanti basabang manaha. The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. Purport. There are many learned sages, philosophers, and transcendentalists who try to conquer the senses, but in spite of their endeavors, even the greatest of them sometimes fall victim to material sense enjoyment due to the agitated mind. Even Vishwamitra, a great sage and perfect yogi, was misled by Menaka into sex enjoyment, although the yogi was endeavoring for sense control and severe types of penance and yoga practice. And of course, there are so many similar instances in the history of the world. By the way, those who attend the morning class, that's in the 9th canto, that's the Menaka and Vishwamitra, and who was born? Shakuntala, right? Who then became married, was it Dushyanta who married Shakuntala? Yeah. Okay. And of course, there are so many similar instances in the history of the world, therefore it is very difficult to control the mind and senses without being fully Krishna conscious. Without engaging the mind in with Krishna, one cannot cease such material engagements. There you go. A practical example is given by Sri Yamunacharya, a great saint and devotee who says, Yadavadi mama cheta Krishna padara vinde navanamana sadhaman yudjitam rantamasi tadavadi patanari sangame smaryamane bhavati mukvikara sushtu nishti vanangcha. Since my mind has been engaged in the service of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, and I have been enjoying an ever-new transcendental humor, whenever I think of sex life with a woman, my face at once turns from it, and I spit at the thought. Prabhupada always says spite at the thought in his lectures. That's one charming little thing. Krishna consciousness is such a transcendentally nice thing that automatically material enjoyment becomes distasteful. It is as if a hungry man had satisfied his hunger by a sufficient quantity of nutritious eatables. So Prabhupada almost always use the word sufficient to mean ample. It's another meaning you'll find in the Oxford English Dictionary. You won't find it in the American Dictionary. Maharaj Ambarish also conquered a great yogi, Durvasa Muni, simply because his mind was engaged in Krishna consciousness. Savaimana Krishna Padada Bindayor, but Vachangsi Vaikunta Gunana Varnane. So there's so many examples in the Bhagavatam of the devotee. And even, Prahlad, it was a very nice talk, as usual, by Niranjara yesterday. He was talking about Prahlad. And really what's so remarkable was Prahlad's equanimity. If you see the movie, you can see that, He's about to be burned up alive, and he's just sitting there meditating on Krishna. Thrown into the vat of ghee, boiling ghee, And he wasn't screaming, he wasn't crying, he wasn't, freaking out, just meditating. And completely confident of Krishna's protection. And he was trained up in the womb by Narada Muni. He comes out, he was this pure devotee. So that power of being able to tolerate and be indifferent to seemingly unbearable tortures or threats is very, very difficult to attain. And it's you see it in the highest devotees. We see it in Haridas Thakur. He's another one. They arrested him. He had been born in a Muslim family, but he became Namacharya, chanting Hare Krishna. All right, who can remember how many times a day did he chant the holy name? How many times? 192 rounds. But how many times did he say the name? In other words, in this mantra, there are 16 names. 300,000. 300,000. So, and he showed the tolerance on both ends, because you have to tolerate the allurements of Maya to enjoy, but you also have to tolerate what Prahlad had to tolerate, things that would normally pain you. So the allurements, very famously, was it Ramchandra Khan, I think, who was trying to make him fall down, and sent the prostitute who volunteered, you know. And so he's sitting in his, you know, middle of the night, he's chanting. And she comes and does what prostitutes do, you know, try to allure him. And so, you know, and she explains, you know, he stops and he says, welcome, how can I, you know, what's up? And so he says, oh, well, I'd like to be with you, you know. Well, okay, yeah, we're fine, we're good, you know. But just let me finish my rounds. You know, he never finishes his rounds. You know? I took a vow that I'm going to chant 10 million rounds this month, and I'm almost done. So you just sit there, but, you know, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, sun rises, you know. So she says, what's this? You know, she goes back, and Ramchandra says, what happened? What happened? And he says, well, just be patient. You know, he promised he'll be with me, and then, you know. And when that happens, then you come with your men and arrest him, you know. Goes back the next night, and he apologizes. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't finish my rounds last night. Just not tonight for sure. You know, just sit down and listen. So she's sitting, and then finally describes there that, you know, said, well, this is boring. I might as well join him in chanting. You know, so she starts chanting. You know, and then the third night, you know, same thing. So finally, she realizes, oh, this is a great saint. She surrenders to him, and he expresses, yeah, I knew from the beginning. You know, the whole plan. I stayed here just for you, so you would be purified. So then she surrenders to him, and she says, now you take over this little bhajan kutir, I'm leaving, you know. And don't worry about anything, you just keep chanting, and Krishna will send everything you need, you know. Or he's told her, give everything you have to the Brahmins and the Vaishnavas, and you just come and sit here and chant. And you know, she became very famous. People would come and give her a big bag, just like we have these big bags of rice. So many people come, you know, oh yes, you know, and we never have enough room there. Anyway. So he's tolerating the allurement of Maya. He's a young man at that time. You know, he's 21 years old. Completely Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. On the other side, he was arrested by the Qazi for becoming a Vaishnav. And born in the, you know, he said, you're born in a glorious Muslim family and you're taking up the ways of the Vaishnava. And so he said, so first Haridas was very calm, and he said, look, so many Muslims have become Vaishnavas. What if so many Vaishnavas have been converted forcibly to become Muslims, right? What is it? There's the sword this side and the Koran on the other side. You accept the Koran or you chop your head off. Probably in one lecture he says like that. So there were so many converts. So what's the big deal if one Muslim becomes a Vaishnava, you know? So the Qazi wasn't very happy with that. So finally he said, oh, you have to stop chanting or I'll kill you. So Haridas says, you can cut me up into little pieces. I'm never going to stop chanting Hare Krishna. So I said, okay, that's it. So they sent him out for the traditional execution by means of beating in the marketplace. So usually, probably the first marketplace, you know, expire, you know, two guys beating you with these big sticks. So Hari just said, okay, no problem, you know. So he goes, they start, you know, beating him, but he's just chanting. And he's actually not feeling any pain. You know, that's mentioned later. And he goes on and on. You know, they didn't sentence him to be killed by, you know, be beaten in 22 marketplaces. They sentenced him to be killed by beating. But after 22 marketplaces, he still wasn't dead. And the executioners were in great anxiety. He could sense that. He said, what's the matter? He said, well, if you don't die, then we're going to get executed. He said, oh, no problem, I'll die. So he goes into samadhi, you know, which looks like death. You can hardly tell the difference. So they thought he was dead. And so they brought him back to the Qazi and said, what do we want to do? Should we bury him here? But the river said, no, it'll turn to a big place of pilgrimage, you know, just throw him in the river. You know, they're right near the river there. Was it Ganges or what? So they threw him in the river, and he just woke up, you know, swam across and kept chanting. And they told him before, oh, you okay? Maybe not. yeah, take the water here. So they had told him, well, if you can survive this, then you can do whatever you want. So he survived, and then he just, you know, got on the other side of the river and kept chanting. So on both ways, he tolerated the beating, obviously, but he also tolerated the allurement. There's two sides of it. And by showing that, he showed his you know, supreme level of detachment and advancement in devotional service. Oh boy, we're running out of time now. Okay. So I read the translation, but I don't know if I read the last paragraph here. Krishna consciousness is such a transcendently nice thing that automatically material enjoyment becomes distasteful. It is as if a hungry man had satisfied his hunger by an ample quantity of nutritious eatables. I did read this. King Ambarish also conquered. I could have read that. So this is all, very important, and it's right at the beginning of his instructions, the second chapter here. The importance of developing a taste for Krishna, and that leads ultimately, and it's also in this wonderful verse that I'm sure is quoted maybe in this chapter, another chapter. It's one of the chapters. 2 verses. The path or the step from faith to love, from Shraddha to Prema. Adhav Shraddha tataksaru sangata bhajana kriya tato narta debatisa tato nishta ruchi tata. Ata sakti tata bhava tata prema sadhakana mayam prena parabhave bhavikara. So, Krishna consciousness begins with faith. It can be preliminary faith. Prabhupada said that enough faith to come to Bhagavad Gita class, or to hit the proper keys on your computer, on your phone, so you'll hear the kirtan or the lecture rather than whatever millions of other things you get. So to bring you into the association of devotees, directly or through some medium, the Prabhupada's books or the internet or whatever it is. But you're hearing. Main thing is you're hearing from a proper source. So that's the first thing. And then the next thing, sadhu sangha, you want to take up the practice. I can see how blissful these devotees are, and I like this book that I'm reading. It's interesting, so I also want to chant. All right, you start chanting 2 rounds a day. So that's bhajana kriya. Now that has to, at one point, mature into the desire to be initiated, because that is a very important step eventually. Take shelter of a realized guru. And then the process of anartha nivritti goes on. Means getting rid of anarthas, all of these latent desires and tendencies and things that we have, being infected by the lower modes of nature. It could be a long process depending on our sincerity, and not to be said. Tato nishta, but it culminates there with real faith. This is the faith Lord Chaitanya spoke of. Adhav, it says, Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kohai Sudha Dandastroy Krishna Bhakti Koli Sarvakarma Kritahoy. That firm faith means to be firmly convinced that just by the practice of Krishna consciousness, all my aspirations for success in life, human life, will be fulfilled. That's firm faith. And then, as this is going on, your taste for Krishna consciousness is increasing. Nishta ruchi stata. Ruchi is the next phase, but ruchi really is there, really day one. If you get a nice kirtan, you happen to, be attracted. You heard about it, you read on chanting or whatever, and then there's a taste there. There's some blissful thing. Dancing, chanting, all these happy devotees. What to speak of the Sunday feast? Then you go downstairs or wherever they have and there's definitely taste there. So right away you're getting the higher taste, directly with the prasadam and also with the kirtan and so forth. So the purification process has begun. And that matures into ruchi and asakti, then attraction for Krishna, bhava, ecstasy, and prema. They go higher and higher and higher according to the purification. So this is very important near also the beginning, I think, of Rupa Goswami's book. He has these verses. And we can see where we're at. Well, obviously we're on a little bit of the Shraddha, platform, otherwise he wouldn't be here. He wouldn't open that book. So the Shraddha is there, but then the Bhajana Kriya has to also, rounds, work up to 16, regular number of rounds every day and so forth. So Prabhupada has made it, very feasible that we can advance. We just have to accept the do's and the don'ts. I won't go into the 2 verses describing Sharanagati. Oh, that's 1 verse, I think. But that's, the process of surrender. But it's all part of it. And we're coming up here on the last part of the chapter. So we'll continue that tomorrow and the next day. We may finish this chapter this week. I'm not sure. But time for a poem. 1 poem and then we'll adjourn. Okay. This is 1 verse from the Namashtaka by Nilakanta Goswami. Kevalashtaka. So he says, Nishvase nahi vishvaso kada rudho bhavishyati kirtane mata balyad hare namaiva kevalam. Remember that our final breath may come at any time, no matter if we're old and sick or in our youthful prime. So young and old alike should chant the name incessantly, The holy name of Sri Hari is surely all that be. Okay, one more. It'll take 1 minute. Also about the holy name, you've heard this one before. I'll just do the English. An excellent fresh nectar drink with endless subtle tastes. Such is the name of Radha, by whom all three worlds are graced. Condensed milk that is wonderfully delicious, thick and sweet. Such is the name of Krishna, in whom all attractions meet. Now mix these drinks, O thirsty tongue, and add the cooling fragrant spice of love, a prize the wise will try to buy at any price. And then in every moment drink this beverage most fine, and make my heart supremely blissful, peaceful, and divine. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Baba. Nilakanta Goswami. Yes, Sri Nilakanta Goswami. Yes, we for many years we thought it was, we didn't know who, but then it was revealed that he wrote. He was an associate of Bhaktivinoda Thakur.
Thank you. I've been listening lately.
Ah, sure.